A couple of days ago, I posted a video about the Baton Rouge shooting where I supported the actions of the police officers. I believe what they did might have been a little bit of an overreaction, but it was still legally just. Well, in this video, I started getting flooded by people asking me about the shooting in Minnesota, the shooting of Philando Castile. Now, I apologize if I said that name wrong. No disrespect intended. In fact, I think that's one of the coolest names I've ever heard. You could have your friends call you Lando, and in this case, Lando C, so that's an awesome name, but I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. Regardless of that, people are asking me, do I support this shooting? Do I somehow support the police in this shooting also? Am I some sort of bootlicker for the police? Well, no, I do not support the police in this shooting. These are two totally different situations. In Baton Rouge, that was a felon, a child molester even, with an illegal firearm who fought with police and lost his life. That's a tragedy, but not that big of a tragedy. This case in Minnesota, that was a good, honest man who just had the misfortune of being driving while black and legally armed. And he paid for that with his life. And that's just not an avoidable tragedy. That's shameful. That's disgusting. It is barbaric. And it is a symptom of a greater threat that faces this entire country. It's one of the greatest threats to freedom in this country. And that threat is this rapid militarization of police that turns them into a paramilitary organization where citizens like you and me are considered the enemy. A friend of mine who just retired with 33 years in law enforcement summed it up pretty well the other day when he said that departments are no longer hiring peace officers, they are now hiring foot soldiers. People that would have flunked out in the first round of psych exams 20 years ago are now their preferred candidate. That is just a perfect example of how police departments are slowly morphing from law enforcement to a private standing army that just enforces the status quo. And as far as they're concerned, the citizens are the biggest threat to the status quo. Now, I'm not going to stand here and try to say this isn't racist. It's definitely racist. I can't see how this would be construed as anything other than racist. If he had been white, I don't think this would have happened. I don't think Trigger Happy Hank would have frantically fired 4 rounds into an innocent man if he'd have been a white innocent man, especially with a child in the car. So yeah, I do think racism plays a big part in this. It's just not the only part. This is just one aspect of this whole mentality in law enforcement nowadays, that it's us versus them. So they label us. And this guy was one of the things they see as a threat. He was black. But he was also something else that they see as a threat, maybe even a bigger threat. He was a legally armed citizen, a citizen that was capable of defending himself if he had to. So this guy was a double threat. When that officer saw he's black and he's armed, he was immediately the enemy. And that is disgusting. And you know, some people are going to say, oh, you're just a hater that doesn't like law enforcement. No, I've been involved in law enforcement most of my life. I'm related to a lot of people that are still in law enforcement. I support good officers. Unfortunately, good officers are being pushed out by the system now. They're being pushed out by a system that wants to create these armies. There are still good officers around, but speak to most of them, especially ones that have been around for more than 10 or 15 years, and ask them how the system has changed since they first started. So I do hope that no one remains silent on this. Anyone that believes in freedom, I hope you do not remain silent on this. I hope the NRA doesn't remain silent. I hope other gun channels don't remain silent on this. Because pretty soon in this country, I don't think we're going to be divided by categories of race or religion or sexual preference or economy. I think we're only going to be divided into 2 categories. Those American citizens that believe in freedom and those that want to oppress us. One of the worst things about being old on camera is I'm constantly decomposing onto my dark shirt.